All right, let's continue with Lark Holds the Key. We should be able to finish the book in this segment. We are on Chapter 8, and when we left off, Lark was taking the job to try and find Mrs. Robinson's key to the library, and she and her brother, twin brother, were already starting to look for it. So far, no luck. We spent some time looking for clues at the park, but didn't have any luck. Finally, Mrs. Robinson suggested we go back to the library. We started walking. Well, not really walking, more like shuffling. We were almost at the library when I realized we'd missed something. "Sophie," I said. "Sophie? What about her?" asked Mrs. Robinson. "Well, we walked the path you walked, and we talked to the people you talked to, but not to Sophie. She's kind of like a clue because she was there. She might know something." I looked around. "We need to find her and talk to her." "Oh," said Mrs. Robinson, "Sophie's like a witness." I knew that word. It was an eyewitness. It was from the detective book. It was the word the PI had used to describe someone who had seen the crime being committed. Yes, exactly like that. Oops, sorry about that. Let's take it back. "That's a great idea. You kids go ahead and do that," Mrs. Robinson said. Okay, we're back up at the top here. "I should stay and wait for Pete," she said. Pete, remember, is the locksmith guy, and he's off on another job right now, replacing a whole bunch of locks at a house or a farm or something. So he can't come to the library to unlock the door for her until he's done with that job. Connor nodded. "That's a good idea." We watched her walk over to Halmani and Mom. "That wasn't a good idea," I said. "We need her to help solve the case." "She's worried," he answered, "and she helped as much as she could. It's up to us to figure this out." He was right. Ugh, I hate it when he's right. Chapter 9. Finding Sophie was harder than I thought. We checked for her at the splash park. No Sophie. Then we went to the skate park. I didn't see Sophie, but I did see Franklin. "Hello, Franklin. We're looking for Sophie. Have you seen her?" He shook his head. "Did you try the splash park?" "Yes," said Connor. Franklin tapped his chin. "What about the arcade?" "We haven't checked there," I said. "Thanks." Connor and I sped to the arcade. It was hard to stay focused on our case. The arcade was full of amazing video games. Plus, it had these awesome colored lights that blinked on and off and turned everything they touched into a rainbow of colors. "Do you see her?" I yelled so Connor could hear me above the music of the games. He shook his head. "We should try the mini golf place." We did, but she wasn't there. "You know who would know where she is?" said Connor. "Her mom." "That's a smart idea." He smiled and looked proud. When we got to Sophie's house, I rang the bell. Sophie's mom answered the door. "Hello, Mrs. Callister," I said. "Do you know where Sophie is? We'd like to talk to her." "Oh, she's upstairs. Hold on, I'll get her." She left to get Sophie. I turned to Connor. "Isn't it funny that we'd find her in the last place we looked?" Connor shook his head. "Of course it's the last place we'd look. Once we found her, why would we keep looking?" Huh. I like that logic. That was kind of funny. Brothers. Sophie came to the door. She squinted at us and folded her arms. "Ba, ba, Lark sheep. What do you want?" "That's not funny," said Connor. It is kind of funny, I said, because our last name is Ba, and that's the sound sheep make. Connor shook his head. No, it's not. She's not making a joke. She's making fun of you. Connor stared at Sophie. That's not cool. It's fine, I said. It was. Sophie and I are BFFs. She just doesn't know it yet. That's okay. I'm patient. But right now, I couldn't worry about friendship. I had a case to solve. We need your help. No. She started to close the door. Wait! I stuck my foot in the door, and it hurt, but I ignored it. This is something you want to do. Why? Mrs. Robinson lost the key to the library. It's your chance to help her. I don't want to help her. But if you help her, she'll tell Principal Robinson. So? So maybe he'll be nicer to you the next time you get in trouble. Like when school starts? She asked. I nodded. That's years away. Actually, it's just 2 months away, Connor said. But Sophie wasn't listening. Forever away, she said. He'll forget by then. Go away. I have stuff to do. This was not going well. She didn't want to help Miss Robinson. She didn't want to help herself. Then I realized how I could get her to help. Sophie, I said, if you help us with this case, I'll help you fly your kite. There's no wind, sheep brain, she scowled, and I know you won't climb a tree. You're right on both counts, I said, but I have an idea that I know will work. I promise. Connor threw his hands in the air. Another promise? Lark, you can't do that. I can keep this one. I looked at Sophie. So will you help? She thought about it. Okay, fine. She turned and yelled into the house, Ma! I'm going out with the sheep people. Connor growled. Sophie ignored him. Where are we going? To the park. We're going to the park, Ma! She closed the front door and started down the steps. Wait, I said. We need your kite. Don't we also need her friend? Said Connor. I shook my head. You can pretend. He sighed. Sophie went inside and got her kite. It was really pretty. The kite was shaped like a diamond. It was lavender and had a long red tail. I got it from my babushka yesterday. Connor frowned. What's a babushka? It's a Ukrainian word, said Sophie. It means grandmother. It was nice of her to send it to me, and I really want to make it fly. Oh, a little insight into Sophie there. We will, I said, as soon as we're done helping Mrs. Robinson. We walked to the park and found the spot where she had been. What now? Connor, go with her. Pretend you're flying the kite. Then Sophie, yell at him when he won't climb the tree. Sophie grinned. I get to yell at him? Why didn't you say that before? I watched. Sophie started yelling. Connor sighed. I yelled too. Where exactly was Mrs. Robinson? Sophie stopped, thought. Then she pointed left. She was sitting on the bench. What did she do? Can you remember? She stopped reading and looked up. Then she closed her book, rushed over to us, and said we couldn't climb the tree and jump out of it. Sophie looked at the tree. I wish we could have. I think it would have made the kite fly. But your friend would have fallen, said Connor. Mrs. Robinson was right. It was too dangerous. Sophie scowled. Connor, you can be such a grown-up. Connor's face went red. "Take that back!" "I won't!" I pushed him between them. "No real fighting." Ugh! No wonder why the PI in the book had worked alone. We have a case to solve. "I'm done helping." Sophie grabbed her kite and ran off. "No, wait!" But she ignored me and kept running. "We don't need her anyway," said Connor. "'Cause we're going to solve it on our own?" He shook his head. "Lark, I'm not sure we can solve this. I think the key is just lost. I'm going to go back to the library and wait." "Come on," he said. "Maybe Pete will let us help with the lock." I shook my head. "You go ahead. I'm going to solve this mystery. I promised." He kicked at the ground. Okay. Maybe I should stay. "I made the promise, not you. Plus, Pete might let you play with the truck lights." Connor's eyes went dreamy. That would be a lot of fun. I faked a smile and watched him go. As soon as he couldn't see me anymore, I let my smile fall away. Mrs. Robinson was gone. Sophie was gone. Connor was gone. And no one thought I could find the key. My bestest day ever had officially turned into my worstest day ever. Chapter 11. I sat under the tree and thought some more. My head was starting to hurt from all the thinking, and I was getting hungry. I wish I'd eaten more of Halmani's French toast. Something about this case just didn't quite add up. Something was missing. Mrs. Robinson was a grown-up, and she was really, really responsible. Maybe she really had just lost the key. But I didn't think so. And I didn't want to give up. And I really didn't want to break my promise. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind in the trees. That made me feel better. But it didn't solve the problem. So I thought about what we had done so far. We'd listened to Mrs. Robinson's story. Then we'd followed her, as the PI would say. We had retraced her steps. Then we had listened to Sophie's version of the story. What hadn't we done? I listened to the wind again. Suddenly, I realized what we'd missed, and that made me smile. Chapter 12. I'd listened to Miss Robinson's story. I'd retraced the path she took to the library, but I, Lark, who wanted to be an actor when I grew up, hadn't actually pretended to be Mrs. Robinson. Pretending to be someone is way different than just listening to their story. You have to feel what they feel, think what they think. That's called putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I ran back to Mrs. Robinson's house. I pretended I had my book in one hand, my purse on my shoulder, and the key in my other hand. Then I started walking. I stopped and looked at the sky. I admired the birds. I thought about cleaning and waxing nostalgic. Then I kept walking. I got to the park, opened my book, and pretended to hear Sophie fighting. I felt scared for Sophie and her friends, so I rushed to where they were, and I talked to the imaginary kids. Then I walked to the library, and I looked down at my hand. My imaginary key was gone, but I was smiling because I knew where it was. Oh, I should have asked you where you thought it might be. Before I turned the page, I didn't know the picture was going to give it away. Mrs. Robinson, Mrs. Robinson! I ran up to the librarian. I know where your key is. Where your key is. Where is it? Asked my mom. You found my key? Great job, Lark, said Hermione. May I please see your book? Mrs. Robinson handed it to me. I opened it up, and there, placed in between the last 2 pages she'd read, was the key. When you saw Sophie, you were worried and scared for her, and you weren't thinking of your key. You stuck it in your book so your hand would be free in case they needed you. I stopped and thought. And maybe so you didn't lose your place in the book, too. That can be kind of annoying when it happens. I hate that when that happens. Lark, you're amazing. Thank you. Mrs. Robinson gave me a big hug, and I hugged Connor. Thanks for your help. He didn't look happy. I don't think I was really helpful. I'm sorry I left you. No, it was good you did. I got to be alone to think. Really? Really, really? He smiled. Maybe I should leave you alone more often. I wish. Mrs. Robinson opened the library and everyone went inside. Except me. I still had one job to do before the case was over. Chapter 14. Last chapter. Why are you here? Sophie peered at me through the crack in the door. I told you I would help you fly the kite, and I will. Oh. She opened the door wider. Did you solve your case? Yes, I helped Mrs. Robinson. Now I can help you. But I didn't stay. You helped enough, and I made a promise. So are we going to fly the kite? Sophie watched me for a second. Okay. Good. Just one thing first. I have to go to the library and get some books, and we'll need some grown-up to help to fly the kite. The library? I nodded. I want to get some books on detective work. I think I'm becoming a really good PI. You want to come with me? Sophie shrugged. Whatever, as long as you help me fly the kite. We went to the library and I got a bunch of mystery books. There were books on figuring out clues in dirt and how to find fingerprints. I got them too. Then I helped Sophie find some books on kite repair, in case the kite got broken. Hermione and Connor came to Sophie's with us to fly the kite. Solving Sophie's problem was easy. She couldn't fly the kite because there was no wind, so we just had to make some. With the adults' help, we brought some fans outside and plugged them in. Then we turned them on. Now Sophie had the wind she needed to fly her kite. And I'd fixed her problem. That was kind of like solving 2 cases in one day. I really was an amazing PI. Sophie looked at me. Thanks, Lark Sheep. I smiled. You're welcome. Connor watched the kite sail in the sky. That was a good idea. I know. I'm an excellent problem solver. I picked up my bag of books. Get your books. We have to go. Where? Asked Connor. We solved Mrs. Robinson's problem. We solved Sophie's problem. I bet there are more mysteries and problems to solve. We need to find them. Connor thought for a minute. Okay. And next time, I won't leave you to play with truck lights. Good work today, you two, said Hermione. You helped out Mrs. Robinson and Sophie. That was kind of you. It was fun, said Connor. I hope we get to help out more people this summer. I agreed. You know what else would be fun? Asked Hermione. What? I asked. If we went to the ice cream shop and each got a double scoop of ice cream. A double scoop? Connor's eyes went bright and wide. Are you kidding me? Hermione smiled. I think it could be just what a pair of detectives need to celebrate a job well done. I agree, I said. Let's get some ice cream. Today really was the bestest day ever. All right, so that is the book Lark Holds the Key. That finishes that book. We finished that chapter book of 70 pages in just 2 days. I think that's pretty good, in about an hour. Not bad. And there is another book in the series. If you like that one, Lark and the Diamond Caper. So I would suggest, if you like that one, that you check at your local library. And again, right now, we can't maybe go to all of our local libraries, but if you have a library card, you can, your parent can, get an account online, and then often you can have ebooks and audiobooks through that account also. Or put a book on hold so it's there for you when you can get to the library. And we'll talk about that again at another time. I want to just go back to that book for a moment because there's a little bit at the end. So if you want to know what else about the words Lark loves, then go ahead and keep listening. And if not, well then I will see you tomorrow. In chapter 1, I say we should go. It says we have, I couldn't remember the word. It started with an N or maybe an I, and it was a good word. It shows we care. I'm your big sister, and that's my decision. The word Lark was thinking of was initiative. It's a great word. It means you take charge of stuff. For example, if you were finished eating dinner, taking the initiative might be helping your parents clear the table without them asking. In chapter 7, didn't you pay attention when the principal is reading the story? She's a client and we have to be... I couldn't think of the word. It was a good one though. It meant to be on your best behavior. Lark knew the definition, but not the word. The awesome word she was thinking of was professional. For example, being professional in class could be making sure you're paying attention when your teacher or another student is talking. The stuff Lark almost got right. In chapter 5, Mrs. Robinson started talking about the sunshine and the birds. Then she said something about cleaning. At least I think she was talking about cleaning. She said something about waxing nostalgic. I didn't know what that meant, but both Mom and Hermione nodded, so I did too. Waxing nostalgic is an old-fashioned way of saying you're thinking about the past and remembering fun memories. For example, when grown-ups talk about the toys they used to play with or the candy they used to eat when they were children, they are waxing nostalgic. Chapter 6. I knew he was right, but in the PI book, the detective had promised the king he'd find the treasure. He called it upping the ante. We have to find the key, I told Connor. I have to get more detective books, and I have to find out what upping the ante means. Lark thought the phrase was upping the ante, but it's really upping the ante, A-N-T-E. To up the ante means to ask more of yourself or others in order to complete a goal. For example, if you were playing baseball and could hit the ball 5 times in a row, upping the ante could be challenge yourself to see if you could hit the ball 6 times in a row. So that's it. And the only other thought I had throughout this whole thing was, do you think that the fans bringing those out and getting those to provide the wind to fly a kite would actually work? That is a good question to discuss. Maybe with an older sister or brother or cousin or mom or dad or auntie or grandparent. Go ask them what they think. About the author, Natasha Dean graduated from the University of Alberta with a BA, that's a Bachelor's of Art, in psychology, studying the brain. Interesting. In addition to her work as a presenter and workshop facilitator with schools, she has written everything from creative fiction to young adult and adult fiction. Natasha was the 2013 Regional Writer in Residence for the Metro Edmonton Library Federation. That would be in Canada. Natasha lives in Edmonton, Alberta. For more information, please visit her website at natashadean.com. And that is truly and officially the end. We'll see what book. I'm hoping. I have the book, The Miraculous Adventures of Edward Tulane next. One of my favorite books of all time. I hope to see you soon.